So I want you to imagine something for a second. Imagine drinking like 5 shots of espresso and then being told to just go sit in a beige waiting room all day.
Oh, wow. Sounds like a nightmare, honestly.
Right. And you have absolutely nothing to read. There's no phone to scroll through, no puzzle to solve, nothing. Your heart is just racing. Your brain is totally firing on all cylinders, but you are physically trapped in this completely stagnant environment.
Yeah, that intense, almost kind of painful restlessness.
Exactly. And that feeling is exactly what happens inside an understimulated border collie. Welcome to today's deep dive, everyone. Today, we're really cracking open the research on the physical and, well, the psychological realities of this incredibly intense working breed. Because honestly, treating these absolute athletes like ornamental house pets is just a one-way ticket to a behavioral disaster.
It totally is. And
Yeah.
it's a genuinely terrifying state of mind for an animal to be trapped in. When we look at the source material detailing the mind-body connection of these specific dogs, it becomes abundantly clear that their history is just fundamentally rewired their neurochemistry.
Yeah, they aren't just normal dogs.
Right. We are looking at a creature whose entire existence has been selectively engineered for one specific, highly demanding job. So today, our focus is entirely on unpacking what happens, outside the food bowl to keep that very specific biology in balance.
Okay, let's unpack this because we really have to start at the root here. I mean, we can't talk about how to tire out a border collie until we understand the mechanics of what they were actually built to do in the first place.
Exactly.
We're looking at a dog that was bred to work these long, grueling days just herding sheep across rugged, open hillsides.
Yeah, and we have to define what herding actually is on a biological level, right? It's
Right.
not just mindless running across a hillside. Herding is, it's a highly modified predatory motor sequence.
A predatory sequence,
Yeah.
like a wolf hunting.
Yes, exactly like a wolf. Through generations of selective breeding, humans basically took the wolf sequence, which is hunt, stalk, chase, bite, and kill. And we amplified the stalk and the chase parts.
But it took out the end target.
Right, we severely suppressed the kill instinct. That means a working border collie is essentially trapped in this sustained loop of high adrenaline predatory focus for hours on end.
Wow. So they are biologically wired to just constantly assess and control movement. That actually explains why the sources point out that the signs of an understimulated border collie are almost always mislabeled as just, bad behavior.
Oh, constantly. People think their dog is just being spiteful.
Right. But if their brain is just flooding with adrenaline and they have literally nothing to herd, I mean, they're going to redirect that drive somewhere. So the excessive barking or that compulsive attention seeking, or, when they decide to start redecorating your living room furniture with their teeth.
Yeah, it's not malice, it's a displacement behavior.
It's just displacement.
The dog is communicating a physiological crisis, really.
Yeah.
They have this massive reserve of cognitive drive and physical energy. And if the environment doesn't provide an outlet, well, the brain still demands a task.
So they make one up.
Exactly. They will invent jobs like herding your children around the kitchen or stalking the family cat or, I don't know, digging a 3-foot trench in the garden. They genuinely feel physiologically right in their own skin when they're working, and they feel completely off when they aren't.
Because of the dopamine. Right.
Yes, their dopamine reward circuits are entirely tied to completing complex tasks.
Wait, I need to push back here on behalf of the listener for a second,
What?
because we are painting a pretty extreme picture here. Does owning a border collie mean I need to, go buy a farm and a flock of sheep? Or do I need to quit my job and start running ultramarathons just to keep my couch intact?
What's fascinating here is that you actually don't need either of those things. I mean, the dog doesn't possess a genetic memory of a sheep.
Right, they don't know what a sheep is inherently.
Exactly. What they fundamentally crave is the dopamine release that comes from consistent, purposeful activity that engages both the body and the mind. It's the requirement to solve a problem that really matters to them, not the specific livestock.
Okay, well, that makes the situation a lot more manageable for a normal person. But since that purposeful activity is just a non-negotiable psychological requirement, we hit this massive physical hurdle. How do we provide that intense activity without physically breaking the dog?
Yeah, that's the real challenge.
Because looking at the veterinary data in these notes, the approach has to radically change based on the dog's life stage.
It does. Let's examine the puppy phase first, because honestly, this is where the most permanent damage is typically done. Young border collies are just this bundle of infinite energy, but structurally, they are incredibly fragile.
Fragile how?
Well, their skeletal system, specifically the epiphyseal plates, which are the growth plates near the ends of their long bones, they're made of this soft, developing cartilage.
Okay, I'm stuck on this growth plate thing. If a 6-month-old puppy is zooming around the living room like an absolute maniac, just bouncing off the walls, my absolute first instinct is to take them on a 3-mile run to burn it off.
Are you saying my attempt to tire them out is actually what causes orthopedic damage?
I am. Yeah. Those growth plates don't fully calcify and close into solid bone until the dog is somewhere between 12 and 18 months old.
12 to 18 months. That's a long time.
It is. So when you take a young puppy on a sustained, forced jog on hard pavement, every single strike of their paw sends this shockwave up that soft cartilage.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's basically like building a high-performance sports car.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Right, like you wouldn't take the car to the racetrack while the suspension is still being bolted together. Taking a puppy on a sustained run is basically just redlining an unfinished engine. That is a perfect analogy. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this is exactly why high-impact, repetitive exercises, so things like forced long runs, sustained jumping for frisbees, or really intense agility training, it creates microscopic crush injuries in those plates.
Crush injuries. Yikes.
Yeah, and it leads directly to angular limb deformities, early onset arthritis, and lifelong joint dysplasias. I mean, you are putting a massive repetitive load on biological structures that are simply not finished forming.
So what should an owner actually be doing? I mean, if you have a puppy whose brain is demanding action, but whose bones are basically made of jello.
The primary focus really must be on shorter, lower impact, self-directed play. And that key term there is self-directed.
They may choose when to stop.
Exactly. You have to let the puppy set the pace. So in a safe, enclosed area, they will naturally run, get the zoomies, completely exhaust themselves, collapse, sleep for an hour, and then reboot.
Just normal puppy stuff.
Right. That natural pattern of intense bursting activity, followed by genuine rest, it allows the muscles to fatigue without overloading the developing joints.
And I assume you don't just guess when they're finally robust enough to start running with you. Like, you use your vet.
Absolutely. Because a puppy will happily try to keep up with you on a run. Their desire to be with you completely overrides their physical discomfort.
They'll just run until they drop.
They will.
Yeah.
But the vet can actually take a radiograph and tell you definitively if those growth plates have closed. Only then should you start introducing that sustained repetitive impact.
Okay, so let's look at the other end of the timeline, because the seniors can't exactly redline the engine anymore either. The goal shifts completely there, doesn't it?
It does. With seniors, the biological priority is maintaining muscle mass without accelerating the joint degradation. As dogs age, the cartilage in their joints naturally thins out, and the production of synovial fluid, which is the joint's natural lubricant, decreases.
It just dries up over time.
Essentially, yeah. So if you completely stop exercising them just because they're getting older, they lose the muscle mass that acts as a shock absorber for those deteriorating joints, which actually makes the arthritis worse.
Oh, wow. So you transition to things that remove gravity from the equation. The notes here highlight swimming as an incredible cardiovascular workout for seniors.
Swimming is amazing for them.
Because the buoyancy supports their body weight, right? So there's zero joint loading, but the resistance of the water keeps the muscles engaged. Or, you stick to gentle walks on softer surfaces like dirt trails instead of concrete.
Exactly. You bring the mechanical impact way down, but you keep the body moving, which honestly is a very different challenge from the prime adult years.
Right, the prime years. Because once those growth plates close around 12 to 18 months, this Border Collie's full athletic capacity just comes online, and it is massive. But based on what we're looking at in these sources, simply letting a healthy adult run wild still won't actually satisfy them.
No, because raw physical movement entirely ignores the mental side of the equation. We have to go back to the biology of herding we talked about earlier. Herding is essentially physical chess.
Physical chess, I like that.
Yeah, the dog is constantly reading the microscopic body language of the sheep, anticipating their movement, calculating spatial geometry to adjust their strategy moment to moment. It's intense brain work.
I hear that, but I'm still stuck on a very specific scenario here. Let's say I put my adult Border Collie on a treadmill for 2 hours. I crank up the speed. When they get off, their tongue is hanging out, they're panting heavily, and their muscles are just completely fatigued. Why wouldn't that solve the restlessness?
I hear that treadmill strategy all the time, and it is a massive trap.
Really?
A trap, yes. Because, sure, their muscles are burning and their cardiovascular system is taxed, But because running on a treadmill requires absolutely zero cognitive effort, their brain was entirely switched off during that 2-hour jog.
Oh, I see.
You haven't tired out the dog. You just created a restless canine bodybuilder. They will literally lie on your living room floor, physically exhausted.
Yeah.
But their eyes will be darting around, and their brain will still be buzzing, desperately looking for a problem to solve.
That distinction between physical fatigue and mental fulfillment is just mind-blowing. So if we can't just run them into the ground, what does practical mental enrichment actually look like for someone, say, living in a suburb? How do we tire out the brain?
Well, we leverage their other biological superpowers. Scent work is phenomenal for this. A dog's olfactory bulb, the part of the brain entirely dedicated to processing smell, is proportionally about 40 times larger than a human's.
40 times? That's insane!
It is. So when you engage that system, the brain has to work incredibly hard.
Explain that mechanism to me. Like, why does sniffing actually burn energy?
Think about it like a computer processor rendering a highly complex 3D video. Processing hundreds of thousands of distinct odors, filtering out the background smells, and puzzling out a very specific scent trail requires intense neurological processing.
And the brain runs on calories.
Exactly. The brain runs on glucose. When a dog is deeply focused on sniffing out a hidden object, their brain is literally consuming massive amounts of physical energy. Engaging the olfactory system creates this deep, settling neurological satisfaction that raw cardio simply cannot achieve.
So playing hide and seek with their favorite toy or using those complex puzzle feeders where they have to manipulate levers and sliding doors just to get their kibble, that isn't just a cute game to post online. It's a heavy cognitive workout.
It is exhausting for them in the best possible way. And even teaching them new tricks, and I mean new tricks, not just drilling the standard sit and stay they learned as a puppy, but forcing them to figure out novel physical movements. That forces the brain to build new neural pathways.
Now, for people who want to lean into the athletics side, the sources heavily endorse structured canine sports. Things like agility courses, flyball, competitive obedience. Those seem like the holy grail because they combine the explosive physical exertion, the mental geometry of navigating a course, and that teamwork element that their genetics are screaming for.
Oh, they are fantastic outlets. But, if you are more lifestyle-oriented and you just don't want to dedicate your weekends to agility trials, consistent daily walks where you actually let the dog stop and deeply sniff everything, combined with those problem-solving games at home, that is incredibly effective. The caveat is that it has to be a daily practice.
Right, consistency is key. But because that drive to work is so deeply ingrained, we run into a really dangerous blind spot. The research emphasizes that a highly driven border collie will often just refuse to self-regulate.
They absolutely will not tap out.
They won't. They will literally run themselves into a state of severe physiological distress because the dopamine hit of the job actually masks the pain, so the burden of setting limits falls entirely on the owner.
You have to be the objective adult in the room. You really need to know the biological signs of overexertion because the dog will lie to you.
They'll pretend they're fine.
Completely. So we are looking for excessive panting that does not resolve after several minutes of enforced rest. We're looking for a dog that is normally super enthusiastic, suddenly lagging behind you on a walk, maybe stumbling slightly, or showing next day muscle stiffness. Those are indicators that you push their muscles past the point of healthy fatigue and into actual tissue damage.
And the weather acts as a massive multiplier for that risk, specifically because of their coat.
Yes. The Border Collie is equipped with a dense double coat. It consists of this harsh outer layer that repels water and a soft, really thick undercoat that acts as deep insulation.
Which is great for Scotland.
Right. That coat is an evolutionary masterpiece for surviving a freezing rainstorm on a Scottish hillside. But it makes heat dissipation extremely difficult anywhere else.
It's essentially a high-grade thermos. Like, it keeps the hot stuff hot and the cold stuff cold, which is incredible in a blizzard, but wildly dangerous on a sunny July afternoon.
That is exactly how the thermodynamics work. Humans sweat across our entire body's surface area to cool down, but dogs only sweat through their paw pads.
Just the paws. That's not a lot of surface area.
It's not. Their primary cooling mechanism is panting, pulling air rapidly over the moist tissues of their mouth and lungs to create evaporative cooling. But when they have a thick thermal layer trapping a 101-degree body temperature against their skin, panting is basically fighting a losing battle against ambient summer heat.
So in warm weather, exercise absolutely must be restricted to the cooler parts of the day, like early morning or late evening. And you have to force them into the shade with water, keeping the sessions artificially short because, like we said, they won't stop on their own.
Exactly. Now, conversely, they tolerate the cold brilliantly, but even in winter, you have to monitor their physical plant, basically their paws. Ice buildup between the toes, chemical road salt, and extreme low temperatures can cause severe cracking and damage to the pads.
Ouch.
Yeah. And really, regardless of the weather, any persistent lameness requires vet intervention to rule out structural damage.
So if we are forced to limit an adult dog's running because of a scorching July afternoon, or we have to limit a senior's exercise because of aging joints, we suddenly have a massive math problem on our hands. The calories out just plummeted, but the calories in from their food bowl likely stayed exactly the same.
Which brings us to the ultimate physical proof of whether an owner's management plan is actually working. This raises an important question. How do we track this? It's the math of weight management. The amount of weight a dog carries heavily dictates their long-term joint health, their cardiovascular efficiency, and honestly, their overall lifespan.
We tend to think of fat as just extra padding, but the notes here dive into the metabolic reality of it. It's not just extra weight mechanically stressing those joints we just talked about protecting.
No, not at all. Adipose tissue, which is just body fat, is a metabolically active endocrine organ.
An organ.
Really? Yes. Visceral fat actually secretes pro-inflammatory cytokines into the dog's bloodstream. So when a Border Collie is overweight, they aren't just carrying a heavier backpack. Their entire body is in a state of chronic, low-grade chemical inflammation that actively degrades joint cartilage and strains internal organs.
That is terrifying. So how do we accurately track this without, like, dragging a terrified dog onto a scale at the vet every single week? The sources outline this hands-on body condition assessment that owners should perform monthly.
Yes, and it relies on palpation and visual cues rather than a number on a scale. Step 1 is the rib check. When you run your hands flat along the side of the dog's chest, you should be able to feel their ribs easily through the skin and just a very thin layer of fat, applying only light pressure.
But you shouldn't see them.
Exactly. You shouldn't be able to visually see the ribs protruding prominently through the coat. That would mean they're underfed.
Okay, so step 2 is the overhead view. Looking down at the dog's back, there should be a clearly defined waist, like an inward tapering or an hourglass shape right behind the rib cage.
And step 3 is the side profile. You want to see a distinct abdominal tuck. The belly should slope sharply upward from the bottom of the rib cage toward the hind legs. If that tuck disappears, it means visceral fat is accumulating in the abdomen, pushing the organs downward.
And if you perform this assessment monthly, you establish a really reliable, objective trend. But there is a very common trap here that the research flags, the seasonal trap.
Oh, this catches so many people.
Right. We transition from summer to winter, it gets dark at 4 p.m., and the outdoor frisbee sessions just naturally decrease, so the calories out drop significantly. But owners continue scooping the exact same amount of kibble into the bowl every single morning.
The calories in remain rigidly constant while the physical output essentially vanishes. That specific dynamic is responsible for the gradual, completely unnoticed weight gain that plagues so many working breeds during the winter months.
So, what does this all mean for you, the listener? Let me push back on this a little bit, because it feels like we're demanding that average dog owners act like literal canine dietitians. Isn't it enough to just look at the back of the dog food bag, find the row for a 40-pound dog, and just follow the feeding chart?
I get why people do that, but the critical flaw with static feeding charts on the back of a commercial bag is that they assume every 40-pound dog lives the exact same life. They don't account for a dynamic metabolism.
They're just averages.
Right. A highly active working day in the spring requires a dense influx of fuel to repair muscle tissue. But a rainy week where you were stuck inside playing hide and seek, or a period where the dog is recovering from a minor paw injury, well, that requires significantly less fuel.
You have to adjust the input based on the actual real-world output.
Exactly. And this is why you must use your vet as a partner. They establish the objective baseline of what your specific dog's ideal body condition looks and feels like. From there, weight management is just a process of daily and weekly calibration.
Just minor adjustments.
Yeah. If you notice the ribs are getting slightly harder to feel and that abdominal tuck is softening, you reduce their intake by 10% immediately. You course correct early, rather than waiting a year and dealing with significant obesity and joint inflammation.
It really is a beautiful, complex dance when you look at the whole picture. Keeping a Border Collie healthy like Truly physically and psychologically healthy means satisfying this deeply ingrained, genetically engineered need to solve problems. It means protecting their biological chassis by tailoring their physical workload to their specific developmental stage, from those fragile puppy growth plates all the way to the thinning cartilage of their senior joints. And it means constantly calibrating their fuel so they aren't carrying around inflammatory weight.
It demands a very high level of commitment, observation, and adaptability from the owner. But honestly, when you get those variables balanced, watching a well-adjusted Border Collie operate, seeing that intelligence and athleticism fully realized, it is truly something special.
It really is.
And, we've focused entirely on Border Collies today, but it makes you wonder how many other highly intelligent working breeds, or even human beings for that matter, are misdiagnosed as having behavioral problems or hyperactivity when, in reality, their underlying biology is simply suffering from a profound lack of purposeful work.
Wow, that is a heavy and completely fascinating thought to leave on. A lack of biological purpose masquerading as a behavioral problem. I absolutely love that perspective. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. We hope you walk away a little more curious about the complex mechanisms driving the minds and bodies of the animals around us. Keep learning, keep questioning the world around you, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.